Well, good afternoon or good evening, depending on whether you're on on this side of the Atlantic, where I'm in the United States, or on the European side. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and Errol Lawson should be here shortly. And we have our first Google Hangout where we're going to be talking about youth leadership and entrepreneurship. I thought we'd start today just talking about some of the challenges today's youth have. And while today's youth are very tech savvy, what we have today is a situation of information overload. There's so much out there that I think it leads to distractions. And I think the hardest thing with all the information we have today is how do young people, indeed all of us, but how do young people in particular stay focused? And when I was growing up, it was relatively easy. You had school, your homework, and maybe some kind of activity or something. I was on the track team. I also was a musician playing drums. But now you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, and you socialize with people through those mediums. You exchange ideas through various apps and the internet, as well as traditional spaces. And I think that sometimes these tools, they can be great. They also lead to a situation where you're going to be, where you have a situation where you're just going to have a hard time focusing your attention and resources. Now, there's a great story I'd like to start out with. When I was really into planes when I was a lot younger. I was watching a special on the Air Force, and I had this retired general named Robbie Olds, as he was known as, and he was a pilot in Vietnam, and they had all these information, all these sensors in the F-4 Phantom, and he found it was too distracting. They started turning things off. I even turned off the intercoms. The guy in the back seat, he wouldn't hear the guy in the back seat. The guy in the back seat could hear him, but he didn't have to hear that person because it was just so distracting. And that's what's essential to leadership and entrepreneurship. You have got to eliminate distractions that are around you. That's something that I struggle with sometimes. I think all of us struggle with to some extent, especially people who have a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. You have so many different things, so many things competing for your attention that it's hard sometimes. It's hard. So today I just want to have a few things to help you navigate the information overload we have today that can be distractors. First and foremost, outline your goals. That's the first thing. Take a look at where you are now and where you want to be. And then scale it back, work your way backwards. Military, we did what's called backwards planning. You start with your end state, then you work your way back. And that then tells you how to then focus your initial first steps. So you start with your goal here, and then look at all the steps backward that get you to that goal ultimately. There's the book, and I just drew a blank on the title, but I think it was Gary Keller. Anyway, Keller, as in Keller Williams, he wrote the book, and it was basically it's called The One Thing, or that's at least what the book's about. And as my friend Ken Jennings mentioned, it's the concept is like you look at your life as a series of dominoes. So what's the one domino that eliminates all the other dominoes? When you're trying to focus your time and effort and resources, that's what you're looking at. What's that one domino you can knock out that knocks down a whole bunch of other dominoes? And the one thing you have to be careful about, as you're looking at your life, you may not be able to you may not find the perfect domino right away, but you can find better dominoes. So what I don't want to do is we don't want to create indecisiveness. See, indecisiveness comes to the point where you keep trying to figure out, where should I focus my time? Is this the best? Is this the best, or this the best? What you want to do is take a look at everything in your life, set priorities. And then when you look at maybe you've narrowed it down to a few top things, and then say, okay, then analyze it. Take one, diagram it out and say, okay, well, this gets me here, this gets me there, this gets me there. And okay, well, this one takes out this. If I do this task, that leads to these 5 things getting done. Or if I do this task, it's only 2 things getting done. So then this task over here, where you get 5 things being done, that's a better task. That's when to focus your time. So then always take everything back to those goals, because time is our most precious commodity. And when right now as a young leader, you're in school, you have all kinds of distractions. I mean, you're trying to get into college, you've got different activities, that you're trying to do. You're trying to juggle your sports teams, your social life, your academic work. So the hard thing, and each person will have a different answer for this, and some things become easier to you than others. So when you go back in those lines, the other thing you're kind of dealing with is, philosophically, do you spend your time reinforcing a strength or bringing up a weakness? Now, either is correct. I typically go for improving strengths. I do take the time to work on my weaknesses, and it's obviously essential for that. So, oh wait, was that Errol just trying to come in? Sorry about that. Looks like Errol Lawson, who was partnering with me, I thought I saw him trying to come in there. Oh, got 2 viewers now. So anyway, welcome for those joining. If I'm glad to see you here. Let me know. Hit the chat line if you want to just tell me where you're from. And okay. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us. And please, if you have any questions, suggestions, or any comments, please chime in. Either come on the microphone and talk, or you can hit on one of the chat lines. Well, I was just kind of covering for the people who just joined us is for today's youth, there's a lot of distractors in life between social media, internet, technology. It's really easy to get pulled in several directions at once. And so what I was trying to do is have people focus on one task, get people to focus on one thing. And I'm not going to go over everything I just talked about. This will be posted online and back in the chat, so you can sort of it'll be on YouTube rather, so you can see what's all going on. Now, go back. What I was just kind of leading off was kind of focusing. What's the one thing you have to do that takes up most of your that frees up your time? And going along with that is how can you delegate other tasks that don't necessarily need your involvement, but you're sort of on the hook for getting them done. I'll give you an example. For instance, when I was in high school, I had all kinds of activities I was involved in. I was in band. I was in cross country and track. I was part of this group called Youth Entertainment Society, where we came up with activities for high school and junior high school students. We put on things like Battle of the Bands, where all these bands would come together and perform. And so I physically couldn't do all these things at once. So what I did is I brought people on board, especially a lot of these school volunteer projects where I was volunteering at church youth groups or things of that nature. I'd find somebody being into, and I'd delegate certain tasks. One of my good friends, Chuck Reifrock, he was involved in the Youth Entertainment Society with me. He really wanted to get involved, and so I found myself coming up with a lot of the ideas, but then turning it over to Chuck to really implement those. And more often than not, he took the lead on getting them done. It was great. I could come up with my ideas, and he got things done. That allowed me to free up my time. And when you think of things, I mean, now there's so many tools out there. There's Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, Odesk, and Elance. All these web servers that allow you to sort of outsource various work and responsibilities. Some people, Tim Ferriss off of the 4-Hour Work Week, I don't know if anyone read his book. One of the things he does very, very succinctly is he quotes a lot from the book Outsource Your Life, and he hires virtual assistants to do a lot of his social media and such. So not everyone in high school has that ability to do that, but maybe you might be able to have somebody who kind of handles your social media. For instance, maybe if you're you manage a social media page for your soccer team or your charity activity or your volunteer group, you could have somebody else who actually manages that task. Even though you're in charge of it, maybe you could pass that on to somebody else to do it. So ultimately, it's trying to find out, where do you spend most of your time? Now, my next topic I want to hit on is teamwork. So much of school today is individual stuff. You do your own homework, you do your own math assignment, you do your own science project. But the real world, it's team focused. And that goes back to the core of who we are as humans. When you go back to early humans, we were not the fastest creature, we were not the strongest creature, but what made us viable creatures, and indeed a threat to all other creatures and animals, was our ability to use our brains, but also to work in teams. And that was how civilizations began. We found ways to work together. And that is how we're effective. So when you get involved in something, always find the right team to help you along. This is particularly true in your own goal setting. See, one of the hardest things, especially for young people, but it's hard for us as adults too, but for young people it's really hard. When you have a goal, you're going to have all kinds of people telling you your goal is bad, your goal is stupid, or you're not going to be able to do it. You can't succeed because of any number of reasons. And unfortunately, that's that kind of peer pressure is stronger for people of adolescence. It's a lot stronger for them to deal with this kind of peer pressure, that they have more pressures to deal with. And there's more social status. I mean, because social status tends to be a real big thing in high schools. There's a lot of pressure to be in the right crowd or that type of thing. And so the hardest part is forming the right team of people who are going to support you in your goals. People who respect your space, respect your goals, and help you get there. And that's a process that I continuously do, even right now. I'm just had my 41st birthday the other day. And that's just one of the things I pass on when I teach my group. And as I mentioned in my bio, I probably should have mentioned this up front, so forgive me while I just digress really briefly. I founded Adventures in Leadership because I was concerned about some of the opportunities and some of the leadership skills that were, well, frankly, not being taught to young people. And that's kind of why I'm here. That's why Errol Lawon is going to join me. And I don't know where he is, unless he's on here and I just don't see him. But anyway, hopefully he'll come on here soon. Because I mean, Errol Lawson's a great guy. He is author of the book Teenpreneur, and he's got a lot of really good insights for young people. So anyway, back to my whole point of discussion here. So you have to have the right team in everything you do. I mean, it's very easy in sports. People who play sports, they understand teams. Everyone has a position. Everyone has a role. What's less clear or more ambiguous is just in our own personal lives. And that's something I have to go to. You need team members who are going to support you. For instance, in the United States, we have National Honor Society. And so I had to do certain things. I had certain goals because I wanted to be in National Honor Society. And ultimately, going back to what I talked about earlier, setting your goals, my main goal was to get into West Point, to the United States Military Academy. So everything I did in high school revolved around that. Every task I did had something to do with that. And so, I mean, even that's why, for instance, and that's where goal setting is so important. I didn't get wrapped around some of the other pressures of drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, not because I thought those things were necessarily good or bad, but my focus was going to West Point. And one of my things with going to West Point is I wanted to be on a varsity athletic team out there. So I didn't want to do anything to my body that would harm my performance. And so that's why I did not drink or smoke. Not because I didn't think it was good or bad. I mean, that's the honest truth. When you find yourself in high school age, you're going to face these pressures, and you're not going to always have a parent around to tell you what to do, what's right and wrong. And the fact of the matter is, when you are younger, these things do damage your body, and you have to think, well, what are the consequences for that? Well, because I had my goal, I was not subjected to those distractions. I did not give in to those distractions, and everything I did, it kind of revolved around that. And then I only associated with people who helped support me to that goal. And there was always people trying to knock me down. And once I got in, everyone wanted to be my friend. Everyone thought, once you achieve success, once you achieve that goal, you're going to find support comes out of the woodwork. But the real true test is forming those team members and friends who are going to help you while your goal is just an idea. That's the hard thing. And eventually you'll find people. Maybe when you first throw out your idea, you're going to find that a lot of people that were close to you initially might think that they'll think it's the dumbest idea ever. And that's the hardest thing to deal with, is when people in your inner circle start to question you. It hurts. But if you believe in what you're doing, you have to have the confidence to go forward. And as Tim Ferriss said in the 4-Hour Work Week, I'll cite that book again. Not everybody comes along with you to the rides of success. And when people seem like they don't want to be part of you anymore, well, you get new friends, get new hangouts. Don't just stay with someone who's going to bring you down. I'll give you an example about that. I think that's one of the biggest things about success is being surrounded by the right people. Michael Vick, many of you might know, he was an NFL, National Football League quarterback who he was involved in dogfighting. Well, he was not personally involved in dogfighting, but he had his family members and friends who were using his place to have these dogfights, and he ended up having to leave the league and spend time in jail. And see, that's a prime example of still hanging out with the wrong crowd. Here's Michael Vick. He had an awesome opportunity to play quarterback in the National Football League, and yet what happened was he got into these distractions. Still let the wrong crowd hang out with him. The wrong crowd drag him down, and drag him down is what they did. And when you achieve success, you're going to find you're going to have a lot of friends who just aren't going to come along for the ride. They don't have the capacity mentally. They don't want to come in there. They're going to spend their time trying to bring you down. And unfortunately, you're going to have to end some friendships. That's just reality. But again, that's why you have to stay on the goal. Ultimately, where is your goal? Where do you want to be? And everything works toward that goal. So let's kind of wrap up, review what we've been talking about so far. So we talked about goal setting. And so the first one is to outline that goal and work it all the way back down timeline-wise to where you are right now. And the tasks you want to focus most of your time on are the ones that create the most, that accomplish the most things with reduced effort. So I mean, if you do this one thing, it's going to take care of all these other things. That's how you want to sort of think through your tasks of how you spend your time and energy. One of the things that was very hard for me to deal with when I first got to West Point, school came easy for me in high school, but at West Point, everything was hard. Time was a constraint. And so you're constantly making choices of, well, I've got this chemistry test and this math test. I don't have time to study for both. Well, the chemistry test is 20% of my grade for the semester, and the math test is 5%. Well, I'm going to blow off the math test and focus my time on that chemistry test, because again, not all things are equal. So that is one of the hardest challenges, especially, and you learn this as you grow older. That's one of the things you start now when you're young, is prioritizing your tasks. Another example of that, me personally, I was a varsity cross-country runner and track runner, but I was also a very accomplished musician. I was first chair drummer all 4 years of high school, did solo competitions and things of that nature. And I think there's always a call to athletics. And I do believe that people should be involved in something athletic, and they should be involved in something artistic, because it really does bring out the best in you. But sometimes I put a lot of time into cross country when really maybe my effort was better spent on music, because when I look at the relative of where I was good in a relative sense, I was a much better musician than I was a runner. And so, who knows, maybe I should have focused there. And that's just one example of things. So where do you focus your time? But again, that's the dilemma. Do you reinforce success, or do you reinforce a weakness? I really can't say weakness, because I was still a good runner. I made a team. I qualified for the state cross-country finals. But it wasn't something that, there were some schools I would have been competitive for, but a school like West Point, I was not competitive enough to be on their cross-country team. But still, I don't regret anything. It's just understanding where things are, where your choices are. And finally, just want to say that I can't emphasize enough. Build your team that who are going to support you and be with you. You don't have the time to waste with people who are going to bring you down, who are going to make you feel bad about yourself. You know what? Forget them. And maybe initially you'll have a harder time attracting people who do believe in you, but you will. If you carry that positive energy, that ultimate belief in what you're trying to accomplish, you'll find that the right people will gravitate toward you. Well, are there any comments from the group? Anyone? I got some viewers on here. Anyone else have any comments you want to add in the chat box? Things I'm going to talk about in future sessions. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you all for listening today. I'm going to say goodbye for now, but this will be something we do every other week, and hopefully I'll have Errol on with me next time. And I just want to say thanks for joining me today. Again, I would really welcome your comments, what you thought about what I had to say, and if you have any suggestions for future topics, please let me know. So again, this was the first session, kind of focusing on goal setting and forming the right team and finding the right task for where you focus your time and energy. Next time we'll get more into the weeds in terms of setting up a vision, setting up your goals, kind of getting more to how to do these things. How do I know if I have the right goals? So we'll kind of get more in the weeds on those topics in the following weeks. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining. This is Tom Coyle, and hope to see you next time.